At 5, remembering a giant in Jacksonville's past. Former Jacksonville Mayor Jake Godbold has died at the age of 85.
Many believe he brought the city into the spotlight while serving as the city's leader from 1978 to 1987. Godbold transformed the city with high-profile development projects, and he's credited with efforts to bring an NFL team to Jacksonville. And one thing that stands out for many is that Godbold fought for the city long after his term as mayor, even in recent weeks before his death.
And tonight we have live team coverage. On your side, Shelby Danielson with reaction from city leaders. But first, Ken Amaro with a look back at the former mayor's life and legacy.
In life, in fact, anyone who knew him would simply call him Jake. He was very successful. His love for this city has no bounds. His passion so strong in some of his speeches, he sounded like a preacher. His fingerprints are on so many landmarks around us, some now being demolished, but his memory will live on.
Jake Godbold, a kid from the projects, was first elected to public office in 1967 to the city council.
Just get out of breath.
2 years later, he was elected mayor and then re-elected in 1983. He served as mayor of the nation's largest city, that is land-wise, until 1987. Godbold would run again for mayor in 1995 and failed. He was defeated by John Delaney. Last August, many packed the St. Andrew's Church for the release of his biography, Jake.
I'm just so humbled that this has happened.
During Godbold's tenure, he touched every socio-economic group, and he changed the face of Jacksonville. Today, you can find his fingerprints on the Riverwalk, the Jacksonville Jazz Festival, the Prime Osborne Convention Center, the now demolished Jacksonville Landing, the Mayo Clinic, and yes, they're even on the Jacksonville Jaguars. When we spoke with Mr. Godbold, he was still concerned about his beloved city and troubled about the possible sale of the JEA.
This guy has no experience. How are we to believe what he's telling us, that we should sell it and get rid of it and turn it over to a private concern? I have doubts about that.
It has been decades since he sat behind the mayor's desk, but to this community, he will always be mayor, or simply Jake. And he will be remembered not for his physical stature, but for the size of his heart. His love for Jacksonville never waned.
Now, Godbold is survived by his son, his granddaughters, and a host of friends and supporters. Tonight at 6, we'll hear from a second-generation politician who has strong connection to the Mayor Godbold. That is Councilman Matt Carlucci. Back to you.
Ken, thank you. And a lot of you are reacting tonight to the former mayor's passing.
Our Shelby Danielson joins us now live. And Shelby, Godbold's being remembered just as an incredible man who did so much for the city of Jacksonville.
And really what he did for this city, it's hard to describe. And I just sat down with Mike Tolbert. He really couldn't even get through all of the things that Jake Godbold did for this city. And you may recognize Mike Tolbert's name. He wrote this biography and it's called Jake. And the reason it's called that is because anyone who knew Jake Godbold knew him on a first name basis. And we actually sat down over here at River City Brewing, and the reason that's important is because this was Jake Godbold's favorite place, and Mike Tolbert was supposed to meet him here for lunch today along with the firefighter union president Randy Wise, and they kept waiting and waiting, and they said they were calling him. It's unlike him to miss a meeting like this because he's always has important messages to convey to them, work to still be done, and then they got the terrible news.
When he came back, he looked like a ghost. And he said, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but they just found Jake dead. You know, it's hard to swallow, hard to believe. Jacksonville just lost its best friend.
And it was also a significant place to meet here, of course, on the Riverwalk. And this is where I met Jake Godbold the last time that we interviewed him about JEA. He was very proud of this Riverwalk and what it showed across the river here. And I want to show a moment from that interview with him last year because very like him, as many people will tell you, he took a moment to introduce me to someone who was very important to him.
Hey, Bo. Hey, Bo. Look at this lady for a minute. Can you smile for the camera?
Yes, that is Jake Godbold introducing me to his beloved dog, who of course he brought along to his interview. And again, that just really shows the kind of person he was. He was very personable, and he was on a first name basis if you met him even one time. We're gonna have much more about him coming up tonight, all new at 6. Live on the Riverwalk, Shelby Danielson, First Coast News, on your side.
So many people remembering him tonight. Shelby, thank you. Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry, in fact, releasing this statement on the former mayor's passing. Jake Godbold's years of public service in Jacksonville will be remembered for decades to come. I have long admired his love and dedication to our city, specifically his support of our senior citizens. His work to help expand small business in Jacksonville was only matched by his passion for big projects in downtown. The Skyway, South Bank, Riverwalk, Convention Center, and numerous other projects and venues are a result of his dedication to help Jacksonville grow and thrive. I appreciate his support of my pension reform, which is important for the future of our city. I'm very saddened to hear of Mayor Godbold's passing, and my thoughts and prayers are with his family.
And we have more on former Mayor Godbold's death on firstcoastnews.com. There you can find more details about his life and his self-titled biography about issues facing the city of Jacksonville.